Hello, my friend. Welcome to your practice. Today we're going to be doing a short class to get our spine moving in all of the directions that it can move, because we definitely want a very mobile spine. So let's go ahead and get started right away. We can get started in a tabletop position. And as you're making your way there, welcome if I haven't seen you here before. My name is Brenton. I'm here with my pal Ollie. And when you come here into your tabletop position, stack your shoulders over your wrists or over your elbows if your wrists don't feel so great weight bearing for you today, and your knees right under your hips. Now before you start moving here, you want to get your head lifted in the same line as your spine. The tendency here is going to be for your head to kind of droop forward, right? So get your chest lifted, your head lifted, and now feel your shoulder blades on your back. And make sure your shoulder blades are stacked right over your wrists. So you're going to keep all of that as you begin to move the spine through some cat-cow movements. Moving first one direction and then the other. See if you can get your spine to be as long as possible throughout both movement cycles. And you're moving your spine in concert with your pelvis. Can you feel your pelvis? It's sort of rocking and rolling over your thigh bones. And also in concert with those shoulder blades. So the shoulder blades stay stacked right over the wrists the whole time, but they're moving away from each other, opening the upper back. And they move toward each other, opening up the chest and the front of the armpits. See if you can really let it be your spine and your pelvis and your shoulder blades that are moving, not your arms and legs. So your arms and legs are super strong. And see if you can hold and find a neutral spine. And then we'll tuck the toes under. Lift off the knees, push back with the hands until we're in a happy squat. So if the hands on the floor is too much, then you can lift your hands up onto something like yoga blocks or an ottoman. Why don't you separate the feet even wider here? That might be nice. Bend the knees and really sit way back in the hips. Let go through the head and neck. You can kind of shake that out a little bit, the top of the spine. And feel the front of the body really peel and lift into the back of the body so you start to get really long there. Bend the knees even more, scoop the tailbone, slowly curl your way all the way on up to a stand. Walk your feet wherever is comfortable for you. I'm going to recommend toes pointing forward just so you can get a little neutral hip position here, and then you can strengthen your spine around it. We're going to move our spine segmentally from the top down. So get yourself nice and lifted. Hands onto the pelvis. Move your pelvis forward and backward. When you do that, you notice that your pelvis is attached to your low back. So anytime you move your pelvis, you move your low back. So you want to get it into a position where the low back feels really long and supported. You're going to hold that with your butt muscles. And then take your hands to your rib cage, the front of your rib cage, and gently move your rib cage back and up over the pelvis so you feel like you're getting longer through the abdomen. And then go ahead and take your hands behind your head and assist your head floating up and back right up over your chest. So you feel all of that good stuff. Hopefully you feel a nice elongated spine as you take the hands down. Now we're not moving anything else. We're just taking the chin into the throat. And then we'll start to take the nose down to the chest. And then we'll start to take the chest down to the belly. And we'll start to keep the belly lifting up into the chest as we start to roll down over the legs. Your legs can bend any amount. You're really focusing on opening up the whole back line of the body. Everything's connected back there. So just feeling all of that gravity finding space. Right down through the feet, slowly reverse your way all the way on up. When you get all the way on up here, find your nice neutral spine. We just did that. Interlock the hands behind the head, but this time gently feel the heart lift up, And the throat lift up and open on the front side ever so slightly, so you're getting a little bit of extension here. And now return to neutral. Go ahead and take the arms down by the side. Soft bend into the knee. We want to keep the same shape in the spine. Put the movement into the hips as we hinge forward over the legs. As we hinge forward, we'll walk ourselves forward to a downward facing dog. So a nice upside down V position. You pick the distance between your hands and feet, but we want our spine to be really long here. So the way to do that is to get your armpits lifting as if they wanted to lift up over your wrists. And that is going to elongate the top of the spine. Now use your legs to pull your pelvis away from your armpits. And that's going to elongate the bottom of the spine. You can bend your knees, you can move your legs around, whatever feels good to you. And the whole front body is lifting into the back body. Let's shift the shoulders forward, tap the knees down to the floor. We're back in our tabletop position. We'll move through a few more cat-cows here. Really moving through the shoulder blades. And after this last time, coming back to a neutral spine, lift up off the knees, start to walk yourself all the way back, happy squat. Sit the knees back. You can widen the feet if that feels good to you, but really getting back into the hips there is gonna also open up some movement possibilities in the spine. Spine and the hips intimately connected, so if one of them doesn't move very well, the other one's probably not gonna move well either. Scoop the tailbone, ground the heels, slowly come all the way on up to stand. Reposition your feet if you like. Get yourself nice and lifted here. You can put your hands on your pelvis to set your pelvis. Then you can put your hands on your ribs to set your ribs. And then your hands behind your head to set your head. One more time, we're gonna do our spinal roll down. So we're gonna take the chin into the throat, then the nose down to the chest, then the chest down to the belly up. And you're really trying to create a nice roly-poly spine here. So the more roly-poly you get, as long as you're in painless regions, is going to really open up all of that tissue. Press down through the feet, slowly curl your way all the way on up. This time when you come all the way up, see if it feels good to reach wide and high with the arms. Stretching out here a little bit, you can just kind of climb your way from side to side, opening up a little bit of space through that whole side body. Getting yourself nice and lifted, see if it feels good to take arms out to the side where you don't feel like your neck is holding your arms. You feel like your arms and your shoulders and your chest are holding your arms, and then it might feel good to just spin a little bit, the center axis of the body, trying to hold the pelvis nice and still. Head lifting up and back. Threading the hands behind the head here. Use that to pull your head up and back, and then keeping the chin tucked, turn the head to the right. Keeping the chin tucked, turn the head to the left. A couple of times each side. Alrighty, my friend. Hands down onto the pelvis, soft bend into the knees. Try to keep the shape of your spine so your hips are doing a lot of the work here for you as you hinge all the way forward. And we walk ourselves back to downward facing dog. Okay, remember how the armpits are trying to lift up over the wrist? Let's go ahead and step our feet close together. We want to feel the front body lift into the back body. We get super long through the spine here. Now we're imagining that we're saran wrapped around the legs as we begin to walk the feet forward, one little teeny step at a time. And your mobility will max you out at some point, and then you just get up to the top however you can. But try to go nice and slow, trying to stack the ribs up over the wrists, pelvis up over the ribs. And if you get your weight all the way to the top before I do, you just hang out there in a forward fold, letting the spine dangle and waterfall, letting go through the back of the neck. Ground down through the knees, slowly come all the way on up to stand. Reach wide and high with the arms. Taking the hands down together in front of the chest, take a moment to pause and see how you feel. All right, we alluded to the hips being a really important aspect of the spine, so we'll get into those just a little bit here. Breathe and reach the arms all the way up. And as you feel ready, hinge forward at the hips. Take your hands down onto the floor, something higher, whatever you like. We're going to begin to step the right foot back so it's in a lunge, and then bring it forward underneath the body. So imagine you're trying to keep your spine nice and still, your shoulders stacked over your wrists. Pulling into the belly, your belly stays nice and long. Next time you step your right foot back, hold. Walk over to the right, all 10 toes. Face the long edge of the mat, and this is your playtime here to move around in any way that feels good. Maybe you want to cruise left to right in your legs, opening up the inner leg line. This is a very tight lining of tissue for most of us. And if your inner legs are tight, it's going to pull weirdly in the pelvis. If your pelvis is being yanked weirdly, well, guess what? There's your low back. Even move your spine around here a little bit as well. So if you wanted to chill out in the legs, find a leg position that's going to work for you. Hands down on the floor, something higher, and then moving the spine maybe through some cat-cows, or what feels good to me right now is some circular movement of the rib cage. Moving the spine is all about getting the hips, the shoulders to understand what their jobs are, and then integrating the belly, the ribs, all of that good stuff. Okay, bend into the knees. See if you can lengthen your spine, take your hands up to your hips, and then slowly come all the way on up. Keep your feet wide, but maybe take them closer together so that you feel really solid. You want to feel solid on the feet, solid on the ankles. All of your leg joints feel good, and then you're zipping up strength into the pelvis. All right, so we did a good job of moving the spine in the forward-backward range, so that should help us kind of find a nice neutral, lengthened up position. So same thing that we did at the back of the mat with your pelvis and your ribs and your head. And now we're gonna keep all of that as we slowly start to tip our little teapot, which is our left shoulder, over to the left side, but we're trying to stay really zipped up into the pelvis. So it's not dramatic at all, but start to feel you have 12 ribs. You have 12 ribs and they correspond with the mid spine, and that's the part of the spine that tends to be kind of hunched forward. So this is the time where we get to kind of stretch in ways that we don't normally move. We just kind of breathe into it. Imagine all of your ribs are like an accordion and they can stretch away from each other. Get your mind into all of those little ribs and feel them fan away from each other. And as the spine's moving, feel for yourself what you can do in the shoulders to support that so that your shoulders don't feel all bummed out. Go ahead and come on up out of that side, and then just a little teapot over to the right. Again, it doesn't have to be dramatic. A good stretch doesn't mean that it has to be like a 7 or an 8 on the sensation scale. Sometimes it's just about exposing your tissues to things they don't do often. And then your nervous system starts to process that and say, oh, okay, this is a possibility. I am safe here. Okay, so go ahead and come on up out of that. And now we'll do something similar, but in a seated position. So go ahead and take your time to come all the way down. And this could be on the floor, it could also be in a chair, whatever you like. But wherever you sit, you want to feel connected with your pelvis and zipped in, not like you're splooging out. So that's gonna make you feel really secure and stable here. So first you wanna get your pelvis in a nice neutral position as best you understand that. If you don't understand what neutral is, keep coming back to class, you'll get it. And feeling the ribs right up over the pelvis, the head right up over that. So we want a true side bend here. That means we're not trying to combine it with a forward bend or a twist or a back bend. We want a true side bend. So that means that you have to get yourself nice and lifted and neutral. And now keep yourself zipped up into your hips as, again, the teapot over to the left. But this time you're going to use your hand to help you find some more space here. So take one of your hands, doesn't matter which, and your thumb most likely, but really whatever you want to do, into your lowest, in between your two lowest ribs. Go ahead and find, oh, that's lower than I thought. Okay, the two lowest ribs, and just kind of start digging around there as long as the tissue doesn't feel tender. And just kind of digging around there is helping your brain map this area from the outside in. And you're just getting a little bit more space. So go ahead and do this to the next, in between the next ribs. And we're just gonna keep moving up the whole rib cage. And as you do this, breathe nice and deep into those areas as if you could inflate the tissue in between your fingers. You can do it in multiple spots, more towards the front of your torso, more right on the side if you want to get into the back of the torso. And your ribs go all the way up to your shoulders, under your armpits. So you want to get all the way up in there. Once you feel like you've kind of gotten it all along the ribs, go ahead and lift yourself on up out of that and just see if there's a difference between your two sides. For me, I feel longer and more effortlessly lifted through the side that we just did. So now let's go ahead and teapot over to the other side. It's just a baby teapot. And you want to look at the beginning. Am I combining this with anything else? Am I twisting, back bending, forward bending? And I want to get myself nice and pulled into the torso. When you feel good about it, you can start your little rib separation move, let's call it, with the fingers. And you could spend actually quite a lot of time doing this if you wanted to. So feel free, if this is, you could do this every day, for example. You could also just pause this video and take some more time right now. For me, I can feel like some spots are a little bit tender, and that's okay. And I'm gonna keep going in there and getting curious about it. Nothing for me is feeling like a total red light. And get all the way up. And when you're finished with that, take your time if you're still working. If you're finished, then you come right back on up and you see how it feels in that nice upright position. So now that you've done both sides, do you just feel a little bit more effortlessly lifted? If you'd like, you can interlock the hands behind the head here, feeling like from the belly button down, you're frozen in space, but above the belly button, turning a little bit left and right. So the twist is sort of the last piece of the spinal movement puzzle to really get into today. So to get into that, let's come back down to tabletop position. The shoulders over the wrists. Again, you could be down on the forearms if you prefer. And if there's another twist you prefer, you could always do that. I like this because it's very active. So here, finding yourself nice and lifted, keep everything the way it is, except for take the right hand behind the ear. You're gonna pivot open on the left shoulder and armpit as you twist open to the right and come back down. Repeating this several times, really trying to keep that left arm nice and strong, and you're just pivoting that shoulder blade like a hinge, like a door hinge. When you're ready for your second side, Taking the right hand down to the floor. Same thing. This side might be more confusing or less confusing, that's okay. Twists in general can be quite a confusing situation. Good job. And we'll actually come down to our backs to finish doing a little bit more passive twist down here to let gravity sort of help us find a little bit more space. If you have a yoga block, go ahead and bring that with you. If you bring in your yoga block, you can place it off the right side of the mat on the highest height. For now, bringing the knees into the belly, and we're gonna see if we can find our sacrum on the floor by tracing around over it. So, little sacrum down here is our fusion of low back bones, usually 5, but everybody's different. Strangely, you might not have 12 ribs, you might have 13 ribs. So every person has a different amount of bones in their body. You don't even know how many bones you have unless you were to do like a full x-ray and count them all up. So for you, for now, just try to trace the perimeter of your sacrum, see if you can figure out where that is, and then see if you can rest your weight in the center of it. As you do that, butterfly your knees, open and close. Good, and before we come into the twist, stretch your feet down to the floor. We can move our spine a little bit segmentally here. So arms down by the side, press down with your feet. We're gonna scoop the tailbone up off the floor and incrementally start to roll the spine off the floor into a low bridge pose. So think about this exercise as you trying like your spine is a chain link necklace and you're just moving one link. All of the rest of the links follow, but only after the first one moves. So now to get down, start at the top of your spine, gently, slowly layering your spine all the way back down to the floor where your tailbone is the last thing to come down. You can do that a few times here. You'll notice that your legs and your butt muscles really have to work to get this to happen, which is a good thing. Because the more they know how to work for you, the safer your brain feels. Sometimes your brain has pain in the spine because it doesn't trust the structures around it are doing what they need to be doing. So after this next one, when you're lifted, slowly segmentally lower down, but pause right before your pelvis comes down to the floor. So your pelvis is ever so slightly lifted. And now stretch your pelvis down away from your ribs and take it back to the floor. Good job. See how you feel. I should also say that if the back of your neck feels kinky at all, please get your head up on a pillow so that the back of your neck can lengthen out. And then we can go ahead and draw the knees into the belly. Do something that feels comfortable with your arms, whether you lay them out or you have them on your belly, whatever feels like it's gonna work for you. And now we wanna tuck the knees so much into the belly that you actually rock your sacrum up off the ground. We're gonna start to rock a little bit to the left and to the right. As you do this, you're trying to move as a sweet little package, especially the legs. The legs wanna stay nice and tucked and close together this whole time. Maybe you want to try to roll all the way over to the right side, keeping the knees tucked into the armpits. You're going to roll over completely so that the right leg comes down to the floor. This left leg, that's why I like this block here, because if I have it on the highest height, I can actually kick it out and get a little bit of a deeper stretch through the outer left leg and into the left hip. But now I'm mostly over on my side here. So if I want to turn this back into a twist, I have to really feel myself pull into center and then open through the left chest to the left. My shoulder is lifted from the floor and that feels okay for me. If it doesn't feel okay for you, maybe you have a couch cushion that you could put underneath there. As you feel ready, let's go ahead, come all the way back in through center. Take your time. And if you want your block on the other side, you can go ahead and move it over there and start to move around on your back. And then tucking the knees in, starting to roll to the left and to the right a few inches. And then you can take your twist over to the left. That block is just a suggestion. If you'd rather keep your knees stacked, you can definitely do that. You want to feel yourself lengthen on all sides of the torso, your belly, your sides, your back. When you feel ready from there, go ahead and come back through center. This is a good opportunity to do anything else that feels good for you. When you feel ready to come into a restful position, you can stretch your legs out long, or you can keep the feet on the floor. You could even toss your shins up onto an ottoman or something like that. Beginning to move, maybe you turn your head from side to side and you start to feel how the neck and the shoulders and the upper back feel from all of that good movement and blood flow. Starting to move through the fingers and the hands a little bit so that you feel good to interlock the hands behind the head and gently pick your head up off the floor, keeping the head and the chin tucked into the throat, and just using your hands to pull your head back and take it back down to the floor. Before coming up to a seat, you might like rolling over to one side in a supported fetal position. That might feel nice. Whenever you're ready to come on up into a seated position, where it can be nice to spend a few moments organized and upright. I hope you found some nourishing ways to move your spine on the parts of your spine that tend to feel a little bit more stuck, I hope you were able to find ways of moving those areas. The parts of your spine that are really used to moving a lot already, I hope you're learning how to stabilize those and keep those from being your dominant movers or like the stars of your show. So you can start to feel all the different areas of your spine. We have 4 different sections. They all have different qualities of movement, things they do better, worse. They have different functions, things they're supposed to do for us. And so the hope is that all 4 of those pieces start to feel better and better, more cooperative as a system. So before we wrap up today, I'd like to say a quick thank you to everybody who's donated to us. We love you. It totally makes our day to see those notifications come through our inbox. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, you can also donate to us. You can do that at yogainyourlivingroom.com/donate. All right, my friend, I hope you feel fantastic after this, and I hope to see you here again soon.